We've been looking at how to get circuit data into XJ Developer. So far, I've shown you how to import a netlist and a schematic, and in this video, I'm going to explain the best way to add a BOM and how to assign its different columns to XJ Developer's data types. Giving XJ Developer this information is useful because it simplifies the subsequent process of device and net categorization. Categorization is the method by which the software is told how to treat devices in your circuit when it performs a test. By giving it BOM information, XJ Developer's suggestions for categorization will be as extensive and accurate as possible, making your work easier. Importing starts with the Add Board dialog box that I introduced in part 1 of this series. Click on the Import BOM button. By the way, XJ Developer must have a netlist before you can import a BOM because it needs to match the BOM's device designators to those in the netlist. Until that point, this button will stay greyed out. Clicking brings up a dialog box in which you can browse to the file's location. When you select a BOM, XJ Developer will automatically attempt to identify its format, and it will show you in the lower half of this box how it interprets the file. If necessary, you can select the format yourself here. Confirm it's reading the BOM data correctly and then click Next, which will take you to a screen for assigning BOM columns to the different data types. By default, XJ Developer will already have attempted to identify the column for reference designators, and it will automatically set that to the reference data type. All the other columns will be unallocated at this stage, so their assignments will be shown as none. If it fails to find a column containing the references, it will display an error and won't continue. If that happens, the most likely causes are that your netlist or BOM hasn't been imported correctly, or that the netlist part of your ODB++ structure is missing. Assuming XJ Developer found the reference column correctly, what you need to do next is to go through the remaining BOM columns and map those that have useful data to the other data types. Before running through that process, though, I'd better explain what each of these different options is intended for. Firstly, None. That's used when a column is to be left unassigned. You'd leave columns set at that when they contain data that you want to be ignored, things like quantity. Description is used for a column that contains descriptive information about the devices. Those are fields with entries such as resistor 1% or quad NAND. It might also contain values and part numbers that XJ Developer will be able to extract, and I'll come back to that point later. The next is Footprint, which is self-explanatory. This field helps when it comes to assigning device models to logic devices, because different footprints require different models. Then we have Part Number, which is the data type reserved for the manufacturer's part number. If your BOM only has internal company part numbers, you'll need to supply a file that XJ Developer can use to convert them, and I'll explain how to do that in the next video. I've already mentioned this reference field, which is used for the device's reference designators. The most important point to say is that it's a mandatory column because it's how the software references every device in the circuit. But it's also used when it comes to making suggestions for device categorization. For example, let's think about a ferrite bead. The software can be configured to recognize that devices with references that start with FB are ferrite beads. When XJ Developer subsequently searches for power and ground nets, if it finds an FB device with one pin connected to a supply rail, it will suggest that the net on its other pin is also a power net. Then we come to the unfitted category. This is used to identify devices that aren't placed during production. Let's say, for example, that your JTAG chain has some 0 ohm links to allow different configurations. If the software knows which of those links are fitted and which ones aren't, it will be able to correctly identify the JTAG chain. This field is also used to decide which devices to exclude from the model of the circuit, so it's an important data type to use. Of course, you might have a fitted column rather than unfitted, but don't worry because you can still assign it to this data type, and I'll explain how to adjust the default settings for that scenario in part 6 of this video series, which focuses on dealing with unfitted devices. Finally, we come to the Value field. This is for columns that contain data. such as 100 ohms or 10 nanofarads. It's used during device categorization in various ways, such as intelligently proposing which resistors to assign as pull, series, or other. So those are the different data types, and what you need to do is to map the BOM columns to some or all of them. Part number and value are the most useful, so it's good to use sources for those that are as well populated as possible. And here's a little tip. If your BOM's got part numbers and values in the same column, it's probably best to allocate it to the value data type because of how XJ Developer searches for part numbers. You see, when the software does device categorization, if it finds the part number field empty, it will read the value and description fields and try to extract a part number from them. So by assigning a mixed column to the value data type, you're not only enabling XJ Developer to get values from it, but you're also giving the software the best chance of extracting the part numbers as well. Now let me show you how to do the mapping. Highlight the column with the data you want to use, select the appropriate data type from the drop-down menu, and click Set. And you can see from the heading of each column that it's been assigned. Repeat that for any other columns that have useful data. Remember that you don't need to assign everything, just what's going to be helpful later. You might have noticed there's a box here for a custom data type, but I'll explain about that in the next video. When you've finished, just click Next to see what your imported BOM looks like, and then click Finish to complete the import. As I mentioned, the next video deals with how to use a custom data type and how to map company part numbers to manufacturers' ones. But if you don't need those, you can go straight to the 5th video in this series that's about using BOM data from multiple sources. You see, there are times when your netlist or schematic can contain additional useful data that's not in your BOM file. In that case, you'll benefit from extracting it. So in the 5th video, I'll demonstrate how to combine data from different sources in order to give XJ Developer the most complete set of information. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please subscribe for more and leave a like or a comment below.